Hi, my name's Dawn Davies and I'm the head buyer of the Whisky Exchange. I'm super excited to have today both my boss, well, apparently I'm probably his boss, but hey, we'll pretend he's my boss for now, Sukhinder Singh, who
That's
is
another conversation.
who is the world's leading expert on whiskey in my eyes and many others, but also has a real passion for rum. And we're also joined by Mitch Wilson, who is our global rum ambassador for Black Tot. So just wanted to kind of have a chat today, a little quick chat about Black Tot, and got to start with the Navy because that's where it all began, wasn't it, Mitch? What was the significance of the Navy for rum in the world?
Absolutely. Well, the Navy were famous for taking a lot of different booze on the seas, but the preferred spirit of the Navy was rum, and especially as we started exploring the Caribbean and bringing all these different casks back from different distilleries, you saw this incredible Navy rum blend being constructed. So from the 1800s onwards, for almost 150 years, you had these giant blending vats putting all these rums from around the world together and creating a rum that has never been seen before or since.
Fantastic. And I remember, gosh, was it maybe almost 9 years ago? And Sukhinder, I was working at Selfridges at the time, and Sukhinder called me up because I'm so excited. I've got this new product, and he goes, I'm inviting you to the launch. And the launch was on HMS Belfast. And Sukhinder, what was it and how did it come about? Because it's an absolutely amazing story.
Yeah, so look, everyone knows me for whiskey. But of course, I love all spirits, be it rum, be it cognac. And I'm always interested to look for interesting, niche, special products. Of course, I've got a passion for old and rare products. So I'm always looking for, bits and pieces there. So what actually happened was a sailor approached me, an ex-Navy officer, saying, I've got a couple of flagons of British Navy rum. And of course, it intrigued me straight away. So it's like, what is this? Tell me more. And so he explained everything to me. Of course, I went away, I did my research, and it was just like, this is fascinating. This is a piece of history. This is amazing. So, of course, I managed to buy these 2 flagons. A number of months later, he passed one of his colleagues on to me who had, I think, 5 or 6 flagons. And I was like, okay, I've got 2. Fine, no harm in taking another 5 or 6. So I bought 5 or 6. And this continued to happen until I got to the point that this is great, but does it taste good? What does it actually taste like? So I opened one of these flagons up, and really, to my surprise, it was spectacular. I couldn't believe actually how good it was. I was mesmerized. I sat with this flagon for like a week, trying it every day to see if it was me or it really was as good as I thought it was. Then I took a sample to some of my, you could say, rum friends in the industry at the time, who I respected, who knew a hell of a lot more than I did. And they were just like, this is amazing. What is it? And I said, all right, I'll come back to you. So I bought the rest of the flagons. I continued over the next, you could say, couple of years. I kept seeing these appear. And, I saw some occasionally in auction, occasionally here. So it intrigued me where the stock was coming from. I got to the bottom of it. I managed to contact the British Navy and just trying to understand, tell me more. What happened? Do you still have stock, etc.? And what they told me was, we did have stock, and it was all lying in a massive warehouse, and we needed to clear the warehouse to rebuild make another building, to knock it down for another purpose. And we've actually disposed of it. I was like, whoa, how many flagons were there? And they go, thousands. I was like, whoa. Okay, so they managed to put me on to who they sold it to. Go down, cutting a long story short, basically went to a wine broker committed fraud, was closed down by the government. The rum flagons went to a liquidator. I managed to contact the liquidator. The day I called him, he goes, "We've just sold them." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, yesterday." And I'm going, "No. How many did you have?" And it was something like just under 3,000 flagons.
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh my God, honestly, have you really sold all this?" He goes, "What price were you thinking?" I go, what else was there?" So he emailed me a list. I called him back an hour later. I made him an offer. And he goes, "Oh, interesting. It's much higher than we've received. You know what? You can have it." So even though they had sort of committed, I think they had agreed, they had decided they were going to sell. I don't think they committed to the guy. So basically, because my offer was a lot higher, they
And that is
decided,
the first time ever I think I've heard Sekinda said, I was going to pay more than someone else.
So, I amassed all these flagons. I found out that there was also a number of them had been sold to a company in America by this wine broker. I managed to contact the company in America, and fortunately, they were willing to sell me back the majority of the flagons they had. So that put me in a position where I believe I owned the majority of the stock. I think there was a few flagons, in private hands where the wine company, wine broker had sold, 5 to this guy, 10 to this guy. But in the scale of things, it was not much. So then the idea was, what do we do? Do I sell the flagons? But for me, it was impractical. They were very difficult to use. They're too big. They're 1 gallon, 4.5 liter. And B, of course, they'd be too expensive. So in my research about the history of the British Navy rum, etc., you of course come across Black Tot Day, which is the end of the rum ration. And considering this was the last parcel of stock from the British Navy of the original rum, it was just so obvious that the name of the rum should be Black Tot. Fortunately, it wasn't registered. We managed to get that done. And then we set upon the task of, marrying all these flagons together and bottling them. Now, what was really interesting is when we opened these flagons, I found a difference. I found like 2 or 3 different styles of rum.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, we couldn't really understand why that was. One main and obvious reason could be the fact that there were 2 victualers yards. Mm-hmm. And, the rum from those victualers yards were bottled separately into these demijohns and then put into storage. So it made sense that there would be 2 styles. But now, over the years, we've understood more. Some of the flagons are dated. And what we realize is, depending on the date of the flagon, the actual blends of the Solera were different. You see my point?
It's actually a Solera.
Yep.
Not perpetual aging?
I mean, it's a Solera, that's the thing. How it was used, of course, no one, again, is fully clear. Some people say, rums were kept in the Solera system for 2 years. Some people say it was, young rum was put in. It was always a third full. It was never emptied. And, so there's some liquid up to, 30, 40, 50 years old because the Solera had been working for 50 years. So it's very difficult to know the truth.
So we launched the original Black Tot, how many years ago now?
It's close to 10 years ago, yeah.
And so today, I mean, we've now got Mitch on board because you've just launched, more recently, Black Tot,
Finest Caribbean.
My brain went last consignment there for a second. Well, too many Black Tots now. And Mitch, so what is the idea around Black Tot in its new incarnation?
So as Sekinda said, when you discovered these flagons and brought them all together and bottled last consignment, it was bottling a piece of rum history. But obviously there is a finite amount of that rum, and it's a blend that can never be recreated. So
and it's £600.
Yeah, and it's
plus.
you know, for our entry level, it was quite high, you know. So, you know, Sukhinder and our head blender, Ollie Chilton at Elixir Distillers, started discussing, you know, how to reinvent or create a new rum blend that would be fitting for the Navy, but something a bit more catered to modern tastes. So this eventually, over several years, I believe the discussion started almost 9 years ago now.
Yeah, we started this really early on. As soon as we launched consignment, you know, a number of people came to us and said, do you not have anything cheaper? And it was like, yeah, okay. But I think we wanted to just, you know, try and see what the reaction to last consignment was. We did have in our mind that it would be really nice to create an entry level. I think it was at that time, I wasn't really sure what I wanted from the product. Did I want to try and recreate the original Black Tot, which to me didn't make sense. But I think over time, we you know, busy with other projects. So over time, as basically rum has sort of, you know, just become really sexy. You know, there's a rum revolution at the moment. And I think following that over the last 10 years and seeing how people's palates have changed, see how distillers are blending or putting their rums together, I think it's been really interesting. So for me, my initial concept of what what Finest Caribbean was going to be to what we ended up doing was very different. And what we looked at was, you know, there needs to be a rum for today. It needs to be a rum that people's palates command. One thing for sure is that people's tastes are changing. If you look at single malts, if you look at whiskey, the reason why whiskey has been very successful is because there's so much diversity in flavor, taste, texture. And I think in rum, you know, when you look at single country rums, they're beautiful in their own right, but, you know, they've got their house styles or country styles. Plus, of course, you've got the production process on top. So for me, I always wanted to take an element of the original history, i.e. blending, you know, using rums from different countries and putting them together. But what we did was, rather than when you look at Last Consignment, which is very Demerara heavy, you know, very molassy, leather, licorice, we wanted to be more fruit forward with layers of flavor and complexity. And so we used the lighter style of rums and built on those, the heavier styles of rum. And I think we've done a very good job. So yeah, that was the idea.
Fantastic. So I think this is a very special anniversary for actually the Black Tot itself. So the Navy's history. This is, I believe, 50th anniversary of the death of the Tot. Can I say that?
Yeah. Okay.
And to celebrate that, we've decided, well, Black Tot and Elixir has decided to host something quite exciting. Mitch, tell us more.
Absolutely. So we wanted to really do something special for the 50th anniversary, and obviously it's been a very unusual year so far. So some of our original plans of traveling around the world sort of haven't been possible, and so instead we thought, what could we do that was meaningful and also sort of symbolic of what I believe Black Tot and the Navy blend stood for. And for me, one of the most curious and special parts about the Navy rum blend is it really was a blend of the world of rum. You know, it brought all of these different distilleries, all of these different wonderful countries together in its blend. And that's what makes the rum so special and so flavorful. And I think it's, you know, in the rum world today, it's something that we strive for, is bringing the best of these different distilleries together now for our blends, but also as a community in the rum world, we really want to bring everyone together. So for the 50th anniversary, we thought, as we're not allowed to travel so much, we'll bring the rum to you. So from the comfort of your own home, we're going to be running a 24-hour rum live stream. Myself, I'll be staying up to host along with yourself, Dawn. Surprise. And for 24 hours, we're going to host some of our favorite rum people from around the world. So some of the amazing distillers, blenders, and key rum influencers who are really pushing the rum category forward in their cities.
And I think, I mean, I've not seen a lineup like this ever, and I'm super excited. And what started off as Mitch and I just having a bit of a laugh has actually turned into something a bit serious. I'm slightly nervous now. But, you know, it's super exciting from people like Joy Spence, Trudiane, Luca, Karsten, who's Sheer. You know, this is some of the most amazing bartenders in rum at the moment. You know, this is going to be probably one of the most exciting things on my calendar this year. And sort of something that I think we're all kind of really excited to talk about.
Oh, do you know how many different guests altogether?
So we've got over 30 guests confirmed.
Good.
And yeah, the lineup really is incredible, as I say. So we're going to be publishing a full schedule list on both the Black Tot website and our socials. And yeah, we encourage you to tune in. So from 10 a.m. on the 31st of July is when we'll be kicking off. And it'll be all of us, plus we'll be joined by a couple of other guests there to sort of see in Black Tot Day and introduce a bit more history about the rum, but also raising a tot around the world at 11 a.m., which will be the exact moment 50 years on since the Black Tot itself was served upon the ships. And then really, yeah, over those next 24 hours, if you're a rum lover or if you're curious about rum or you just want to learn more and find out some more from some of the experts in the rum world, this day, you can't miss this day.
So Sekinda, if you weren't a rum lover and you know, a lot of our customers are whiskey lovers, why should they tune in for this 24 hours?
I think rum, for me, I find it quite similar to whiskey. You know, it's a distilled product, it's aged. Of course, the base ingredient is different, but in that way, in many aspects, it's very similar. In the other aspect, I find it a lot more fun. It's a lot more interesting. Now, one thing very important is, I believe the success of whiskey has been the community. You understand? The whole industry is together. You know, they're friendly, they respect each other's brands. I think in some categories, let's say cognac, it's a little bit more difficult. You know, it's dominated by a few big companies, and, you know, to get them all on the table together is impossible. So I think for me, what's really nice is that the rum industry over the last few years are getting together, are promoting each other, are talking to each other. And I think it's brands like Black Tot, which is a blended rum, which is used in so many aspects, you know, so many countries. And it's the perfect platform to bring everyone together. You know, it's a celebration of rum. That's the title of the 24 hours. It is exactly that. It's a celebration of rum. You know, all these producers were so important for the original Black Tot. Yeah. So for me, I think it's beautiful. I think, you know, every distiller has its own expertise, their own skill, their own mindset. And, you know, it's nice watching that. Actually, I'm finding that other distillers are learning from each other. And you can see they're adapting each other's processes of improving production or altering production or adding an extra dimension, which they can use in their final blends or vats or marriages or whatever. So I think this rum revolution, which, you know, you could argue has been sort of started by Luca, you know, this guy's passion is just insane. You know, I've learned so much from Luca, and just to imagine this man has been going to the Caribbean for 40 to 50 years, you know, discovering these small plantations and, you know, these small distillers, and he knows everyone. And, you know, he's helped kickstart this. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's going to be a really amazing 24 hours. I think some of the topics covered are going to be superb and very educational. And I think, you know, as I said, you know, whiskey is about flavor. And I think there is a lot of amazing different flavors in rum, you know, that I think it appeals to the whiskey drinker. And I think there's a lot for the whiskey drinker to learn about rum. And this is a perfect platform.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think so, you know, on that note, 31st of July, 10 a.m. till 1st of August, 10 a.m. Join Mitch and myself on one of the most fantastic journeys of rum. And I'm sure there's going to be, as well as amazing conversations and debates, a lot of fun, because it is Mitch and Dawn. Thank you.
Oh, great. See you then.